Mere mortals, please keep your hands and feet inside the car at all times. Now sit back and enjoy the ride. Mwahaha. Villainous vampires and their vulnerable victims. Understanding Bram Stoker's Dracula and Alla Lily Amirpour's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night through queer utopias and a feminist Iranian vampire. A critical analysis of resistive monstrosity in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night by Sade Abdi and Bernadette Marie Calafel. This presentation is by Bridget McGivern. Synopsizing Abdi and Calafel's work. My synopsis will be divided into 4 sections. Part 1. Vampires and Monstrosity. Part 2. Iranian and Iranian American feminisms. Part 3. Queer utopias. And Part 4. The feminist anti-hero. Vampires and monstrosity as depicted by Bram Stoker. And begin to crawl, face down with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. There was a deliberate voluptuousness which was both thrilling and repulsive, and as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal. The aristocratic Count Dracula outwardly presents as an odd, yet refined and wealthy nobleman of Transylvania. His ability to shapeshift between a gentleman and his true vampiric self is largely undetected, yet he cannot truly conceal his monstrous nature. Stoker chooses to portray Count Dracula existing as both a vampire and an aristocrat, which in the 17th century was highly desirable. Similarly, the 3 vampire women who serve Dracula are described by Jonathan Harker as ladies by their dress and manner, indicative that as well as a sensual haze of attraction they have on men who encounter them, their outwards appearance is also one of status or nobility. The erotic beauty and seductive nature of the 3 vampire sisters could correlate with Abdi and Calafel's finding that monstrous characters are indicative of society's desires. Iranian and Iranian American feminisms. The current feminist aesthetic paints contemporary Iran with women challenging gendered expectations. There are several key events in history that have fundamentally shaped feminism in Iran, and as consequence, influenced Iranian American feminism. These include the fall of the Persian Empire, the 1979 Iranian Revolution, which divided Iranian feminism into 2 parts, Islamic and secular, and the 2009 Green Movement in Iran. Currently in Iran, feminism is dominated and directed by young Iranians. However, despite their louder and more attention-grabbing course of action, what they encourage is still not widely practiced due to the overarching presence of cultural expectations. How the feminist movement in Iran translates to Iranian American feminism is that while America is recognized as allowing Iranian women more freedoms, the presence of cultural expectations are somewhat inescapable. Queer utopias. Queerness is essentially about the rejection of a here and now and an insistence on potentiality or concrete possibility for another world. Abdi and Calafel examine queer utopias guided by scholars hailing from a queer, of-colour background and understand queer to be an identity and a practice. Abdi and Calafel utilize the example of borderlands between Mexico and Southern America, the middle ground for Chicano, Chicana, and Chicanx persons. This middle ground is a place that is neither Mexico nor America, and physically is a borderland site. The physical location of neither here nor there, in combination with the violence, racism, and homophobia perpetuated against Shikan X who live in this place, creates a sense of being a stranger and of being outside or queer. This example, when juxtaposed against Bad City in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, shows it to be a borderland place too. Queer feminist of colour Anzaldua calls for a reclaiming of these queer spaces, to take back a location from the oppressors and return it to the oppressed. This placing of empowerment into locations that were formerly sites of disidentification creates possibilities for the future of queer utopias. The feminist anti-hero. By reimagining the chador as a superhero's cape and a source of strength, Amirpour's vision embraces the complexities and contradictions that many queer Iranian and Iranian American women must live within. Setting the scene of Bad City as a queer utopia, riddled with underlying and subliminal issues related to the oil trade, drug trafficking, sex work, and Iranian cultural expectations for women, it is clear that this city is in need of a hero to save it from itself. The girl is a superhero in a chador. Amirpour has subverted so many superhero tropes, such as being male, cape wearing, and righteous, to create a reimagined queer hero without the sexualized Hollywood female superhero connotations. The villains that the girl utilizes her vampiric powers to overcome are two vile men riddled with drug problems and terrorizing the town and its inhabitants, though not always publicly. Now, mortals, I hope you are still listening as we move on to part 2 of this multimedia presentation. Applying Abde and Califel's analysis to Anna Lily Amirpour's A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night and Bram Stoker's Dracula. Mwahahaha. Vampires and monstrosity as depicted by Bram Stoker, and begin to crawl, face down with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. There was a deliberate voluptuousness which was both thrilling and repulsive, and as she arched her neck, she actually licked her lips like an animal. The aristocratic Count Dracula outwardly presents as an odd, yet refined and wealthy nobleman of Transylvania. His ability to shapeshift between a gentleman and his true vampiric self is largely undetected, yet he cannot truly conceal his monstrous nature. Stoker chooses to portray Count Dracula as both a vampire and an aristocrat, which in the 19th century was highly desirable. Similarly, the 3 vampire women who serve Dracula are described by Jonathan Harker as ladies by their dress and manner, indicative that as well as the sensual haze of attraction they have on men who encounter them, their outwards appearance is also one of status or nobility. The erotic beauty and seductive nature of the 3 vampire sisters could correlate with Abdi and Califel's finding that monstrous characters are indicative of society's desires. Iranian and Iranian American feminisms within the landscape of Anna Lily Amirpour's film. The landscape that director Anna Lily Amirpour creates in A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is a black and white, desolate place. The film is set in Iran, with the otherwise unnamed girl as our main character. Donning a chador in place of a traditional cape, this skateboarding vampire is a feminist icon amongst the backdrop of Iranian women's struggles. Despite her ability to overpower bad men with ease, her unfeminine dress sense and flouting of Iranian traditional cultural expectations, A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night is a reminder that many women, such as the additional character of Ati, are bound to their duties and controlled by patriarchal characters such as Said or Hussein. Reimagining Count Dracula's castle as a queer utopia. Written in an epistolary format, Stoker's novel allows the reader access to the innermost workings of our protagonists. Count Dracula's castle in the Carpathian Mountains is situated between Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina, an area we come to understand through Abdi and Calafel as a borderland place. Dracula himself is an outsider who cannot simultaneously exist with the mortal population around him. The feminist anti-hero, the unnamed girl. While she is stripped of a name and the film makes no mention of her past, the girl is the antithesis to a Hollywood hero. Applying Upday and Calafel's critical analysis to A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night provides the viewer with greater understanding of the factors at play when Amirpour created this anti-hero. In subverting the traditional Dracula-style vampire as Stoker conceived him, the message Amirpour sends via the girl engenders women, in particular Iranian women, queer persons, and other shunned outsiders. They are inspired to find a hero within, one who does not conform to society's desires, but perhaps to what society fears instead. Thank you for watching this presentation. We hope that your understanding of vampires, Transylvanian and Iranian alike, has been enriched. We only ask one more thing of you. This holiday season, don't forget to donate blood. We are hungry.